It's 11:47 on a Tuesday night. You're on the couch, half watching some crime documentary you've already seen twice when it happens. 3 sharp knocks. Not the casual pizza delivery rap. These are heavy, authoritative, the kind that travels straight from your front door to the base of your spine. Then a voice, calm, loud, practiced. Police department, open the door. Through the blinds, you see it. Red and blue light bleeding across your living room ceiling. 2 silhouettes standing just outside. One has his hand resting on something at his belt. The other is looking past your porch, scanning your windows, your driveway, your neighbors' dark houses. Your phone is in your hand. Your Wi-Fi is on. Your Ring camera is recording. And you have no idea, none, that the tool you use to stream Netflix and scroll TikTok is about to become a surveillance asset for the people standing on the other side of that door. Has this ever happened to you? Have police ever shown up at your home unexpectedly, late at night, early morning, middle of the day, and started asking questions from your doorway? Have they asked to come inside, pressured you to just talk for a minute, told you that cooperating will make everything easier? If it has, I want you to do something for me right now. Pause for 5 seconds and drop your story in the comments. Because later in this article, I'm going to show you exactly why your answer, what you said, what you didn't say, and what your Wi-Fi was doing while you were panicking, might have changed everything without you even realizing it. Let's rewind. That knock at 11:47. Most people, when they hear it, make the same mistake within the first 3 seconds. They assume the danger is outside. They think the threat is the officers, the guns, the badge, the legal authority to break down the door. But that's not where the real exposure lives anymore. The real exposure is already inside your house. It's been inside for years. It's the same signal that lets you check your email from the bathroom and your kid play Roblox in their bedroom, your Wi-Fi. Here's what almost no one understands until it's too late. Police don't need a warrant to read the metadata your own devices are broadcasting into the air. They don't need a judge's signature to see which phones, laptops, tablets, and smart home devices are active inside your home at any given moment. And under current federal law, specifically the Party Doctrine, which I'll come back to, they can argue that once your device sends a signal to your router and your router sends that signal to your internet provider, you've essentially abandoned any reasonable expectation of privacy over that connection pattern. I'm not talking about the content of your messages. That's different. That still requires a warrant in most cases. But the fact that your phone is talking to your router, the timing of those connections, the MAC addresses, think of them as digital license plates of every device in your house, that's metadata. And metadata, in the eyes of many courts, is fair game. Let me make this painfully real for you. I've watched body camera footage, hours of it, where officers show up at a house for something completely unrelated. Noise complaint, a 911 hang-up, a check the welfare call from an overly concerned relative. The resident opens the door, nervous but cooperative. The officer stands in the doorway, not even stepping inside, and casually asks, "Anyone else home right now?" The resident says no, but the officer's handheld device, or the tracking software their department uses, has already picked up 7 active Wi-Fi signals pinging off that residence. The officer knows you're lying before you finish the sentence. And now, without a single piece of physical evidence, without a search, without a warrant, they have probable cause to dig deeper. This is not science fiction. This is not some paranoid fantasy cooked up by people who wear tinfoil hats. This is the reality of modern policing. And the technology has outpaced the law so dramatically that most judges don't even fully understand how it works yet. But the cops on the street, they understand it. Or at least the smart ones do. And the ones who don't understand it are learning it in training right now. So let's talk about how they actually use this against you, because the tactics are psychological first and technological second. You're standing at your door. It's open maybe 6 inches. The chain is on. One officer is doing the talking. Friendly, calm, almost apologetic. "Hey, sorry to bother you so late. We just got a call about some suspicious activity in the area. You notice anything weird tonight?" That's the setup. While he's asking you that, while you're stammering, "No, I've been home all night. Everything's fine." The second officer is standing slightly back, not saying a word, but his body is angled just enough to see past you into your home. He's not looking for drugs or guns. He's looking for phones on the coffee table, laptops open on the kitchen counter, tablets glowing on the couch. He's counting devices. And then, when you close the door, assuming you close it, he walks back to the cruiser and pulls up the Wi-Fi signature his equipment already captured from the street. Here's where it gets brutal. That second officer doesn't need to see your screens. He doesn't need to know what you're watching or reading or posting. He just needs to know that at 11:47 p.m., your router was communicating with 4 Apple devices, 2 Android devices, a smart TV, and a gaming console. That alone, that pattern of active devices late at night, becomes suspicious in a report. And once it's in a report, it's evidence. I want you to really feel the trap here. You haven't consented to anything, you haven't let them inside, you haven't said anything incriminating, but you have, without knowing it, allowed them to map the digital footprint of everyone in your home simply by opening the door and standing there for 90 seconds. Because your devices don't stop broadcasting just because you're scared. Your phone is still trying to connect to your Wi-Fi, your router is still announcing its presence, and any officer with a $300 Wi-Fi analyzer, which many departments now issue as standard equipment, can read that signal through your walls, your windows, your door. So how do you stop it? How do you shut down this invisible surveillance without becoming combative, without looking guilty, without escalating a situation that might be completely innocent? First, understand what officers are looking for when they show up at your home. They're looking for consent. That's the golden key. A warrant takes time, paperwork, a judge who might say no, and a probable cause standard that's actually fairly high. Consent takes one sentence from you. Yeah, sure, come in. They will say almost anything to get that sentence. We just want to make sure everyone's safe. You have nothing to hide, right? If you let us take a quick look, we'll be out of your hair in 5 minutes. These are not requests. These are psychological traps designed to make non-consent feel rude, suspicious, or dangerous. I'm going to give you a phrase that most people have never heard, but that completely changes the power dynamic. When an officer asks to come inside, you say this: I do not consent to any search. If you have a warrant, please slide it under the door or hold it up to the window. That's it. You don't need to be angry. You don't need to slam the door. You don't need to explain why. In fact, explaining is the second biggest mistake people make, right after agreeing to talk. Why is explaining bad? Because every explanation you give becomes a rope they can pull. I'm not letting you in because I'm busy. Great, how busy? Doing what? I'm not letting you in because I don't trust the police. Great, why don't you trust us? Did something happen? I'm not letting you in because I have nothing to hide, but I value my privacy. Great, what are you hiding that requires privacy? Every answer you give is an invitation for another question. And the entire time they're asking, they're also listening. They're listening for other voices in your home. They're listening for pauses that sound like lies. They're listening for the shuffle of feet, the closing of a laptop lid, the flush of a toilet. Any sound that tells them you're reacting to their presence. This is why silence is so powerful. Not hostile silence, not frightened silence. Calm, neutral, repetitive silence. I do not consent to any search. If you have a warrant, please present it. They ask again, differently worded. You repeat the same phrase. They try a new angle. We're not trying to search, we just want to talk. You repeat the phrase. Most officers, after 2 or 3 cycles, will leave. Not because they're nice, because they know you're not going to give them what they want, and they have other calls waiting. But here's where the Wi-Fi piece becomes critical. And this is the part that almost no lawyer tells you because most lawyers don't fully understand the technology. Even after you refuse consent and close the door, your devices are still pinging. So you have to take the next step. You have to disrupt the signal that they're reading from outside. The most effective way to do this is also the simplest, and it requires no technical expertise. Turn off your router. Unplug it. Every night before you go to sleep, or immediately after any unexpected police contact, kill the power to your home network. No signal means nothing to analyze. No active devices means no metadata to log. And here's the beautiful legal irony. You are under absolutely no obligation to keep your Wi-Fi on. It's your house, it's your router. You can unplug it because you want to save electricity, because you read a scary article about EMF exposure, because you just feel like it. The police cannot compel you to broadcast a signal they can then use against you. But wait, you might be thinking, what about my phone? What about cellular data? That's different. Your phone constantly pings cell towers regardless of Wi-Fi. Police can get that data too, but generally with a warrant or a court order. The Wi-Fi piece is the low-hanging fruit because it's unregulated, it's broadcast into public space. Yes, courts have ruled that Wi-Fi signals passing through your walls are public in some contexts, and it requires no legal process at all. I want to tell you about a case that should terrify every American who cares about privacy. Not because the outcome was necessarily wrong, but because of how easily it happened. A few years ago, police in a medium-sized city were investigating a series of thefts from parked cars. They had no suspects, no description, nothing. So they did something creative. They parked an unmarked van outside an apartment complex and used a Wi-Fi analyzer to see which units had active devices at 3 a.m. They identified one apartment that consistently showed heavy network traffic in the middle of the night. They knocked. The resident let them in voluntarily. No warrant, no coercion, just, sure, come on in. Inside, they found stolen merchandise stacked in the living room. The evidence was admitted at trial. The conviction stood. And the court ruled that the Wi-Fi scan from the van was not a search because the signal was readily accessible to the public. Readily accessible to the public. Think about that phrase. Your Wi-Fi signal inside your home, passing through your walls, is considered by some courts to be as public as a bumper sticker. Now, I'm not saying this is settled law. It's not. There are deep splits between federal circuits. Some judges are horrified by this reasoning. Others accept it as the natural consequence of wireless technology. But here's what matters for you, standing at your door at 11:47 p.m. The officer on your porch doesn't care about legal nuance. He cares about what he can get away with. And until a judge tells him he can't scan your Wi-Fi from the sidewalk, he's going to keep doing it. So you need to operate from a position of realistic defense, not ideological purity. Realistic defense means unplug the router. Realistic defense means keep your phone on airplane mode when you're not using it, especially after any police contact. Realistic defense means don't assume that I have nothing to hide protects you, because innocent people have their metadata collected, analyzed, and sometimes misinterpreted every single day. Let me give you a scenario that will stick with you. A father is at home with his teenage son. The son, like most teenagers, is up late texting friends, playing online games, browsing social media. Police show up because a neighbor reported a domestic disturbance, which turns out to be nothing more than loud music. The father opens the door, explains calmly that everything is fine, refuses consent to enter, and closes the door. He thinks the encounter is over. It's not. The officer runs the Wi-Fi scan. He sees heavy activity from the son's bedroom. That's not suspicious in itself until the officer checks the son's social media profile later, public information, and sees that the son has posted about marijuana use. Now the officer has a connection. Active Wi-Fi at 1 a.m. in the bedroom of a teenager who posts about drugs. No warrant, no consent, no physical evidence. But a prosecutor looking to build a case might call that suspicious circumstances to justify further investigation. And the father, who did everything right, refused consent, stayed calm, kept the door closed, has no idea that his son's online behavior just created a police file on their family. This is the part of the conversation that makes people uncomfortable, because it's not about guilt or innocence anymore. It's about exposure. It's about the fact that you can be completely innocent of any crime and still end up in a database, still have your patterns analyzed, still have your family's habits logged as intelligence because you happen to live in a neighborhood where police are aggressive about technology. So what do you actually do tonight after reading this article? 3 things. 1. Memorize the consent refusal phrase I gave you. Practice it in the mirror if you have to. Say it until it feels automatic, because when adrenaline is flooding your system, you won't be clever or articulate. You'll default to whatever you've rehearsed. 2. Put your router on a smart plug. A $10 smart plug lets you cut power to your entire home network from your phone. If you see cruisers pull up outside, kill the Wi-Fi before they even knock. 3. Talk to your family. Your teenager, your spouse, your roommate, everyone needs to know that opening the door is a choice, not an obligation. Everyone needs to know that "I don't consent to any search" is not a rude thing to say. It's a constitutional thing to say. I'm not telling you to hate the police. I'm not telling you that every officer is out to get you. Most cops are just doing a job, following training, trying to clear calls, and go home safely. But their training has changed, the tools have changed, and the law has not kept up. In that gap between what police can technically do and what courts have officially prohibited, your privacy is being eaten alive by the same signal that lets you stream a movie. The knock came at 11:47. It's 11:50 now. You've opened the door, you've said a few words. The officer is still standing there, still talking, still waiting. But now you know something you didn't know 5 minutes ago. You know that your Wi-Fi is already telling a story about you, whether you speak or not. You know that the power to stop that story, to cut the thread they're pulling, is literally in your hands. You know that silence is not weakness, it's strategy. So the next time you hear those 3 knocks, and statistically, many of you will because police respond to millions of residential calls every year, you have a choice. You can be the person who panics, who talks too much, who leaves every device broadcasting evidence of your innocent life to be twisted into something suspicious. Or you can be the person who pauses, who breathes, who says the one sentence that changes everything, and who reaches over, calmly, deliberately, and unplugs the invisible spy that's been sitting in your living room this whole time. Close the door, kill the signal, and remember, in the eyes of the law, your silence is not an admission, your router is not a witness, and your home is still yours until you give it away.